Welcome to Front Row. My name is Trix Ingado. Now, hate speech is an expression that advocates, incites, promotes, or justifies hatred, violence, and discrimination against a person or a group of persons for a variety of reasons. It is a threat to the cohesion of a democratic society, the protection of human rights, and the rule of law being the extreme form of intolerance that it is. That is the conversation that we're going to have today, and we are asking you to be a part of this conversation. What is a lasting solution, or the lasting solution, in taming hate speech, violence, and fostering national cohesion as we gear towards the 2022 polls? You can reach me at Trix Ingado. The hashtag is Front Row. Let us know what you think about this conversation. Now, we have two guests that we are expecting to have this conversation with. My first guest is not with us yet, but that is Javas Bigambo. Expecting him anytime right now, and he is a consultant in governance, human rights, leadership, and communication. He's the founder of Thoughts Consulting. Javas studied political science, human resource development, communication, law at various universities. He is also a former lecturer at Moi University. We also have with us Wambui Nyutu, who is the vice chair in CIC. She is the vice chair in CIC, that is the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. He is a certified professional mediator from Mediation Training Institute East Africa and holds an arbitration and ADR certification. Thank you so much for making it to Front Row this evening. We're going to start off with this story that's going to get us into this conversation, because this has had tongues wagging across the nation. Now, Meru Senator Rithika Linturi joins a long list of politicians who have over the years been on the spot over hate speech, but often no concrete action has been taken. It either ends up with summons, arrests, investigations, or arraignment in court. Are institutions charged with taming hate speech and violence and fostering national cohesion up to the task? Rita Nina interrogates.
Utterances by Meru Senator Rithika Linturi landed him in trouble with the law. But his arrest and arraignment in court, if at all, may be as far as it gets, if past instances are anything to go by. 2010, for instance, then Cherangani MP Joshua Kutuni, Mount Elgon MP Fred Kapondi, and Assistant Minister Fred Machage were arrested and arraigned in court over charges of hate speech and incitement to violence. The list has been growing over the past decade. Former Nairobi Mayor George Aladwa, former Kiambu Governor William Kabogo, Gatundu South MP Moses Kuria, former Machakos Senator Johnston Muthama, Busia Woman Representative Florence Mutua, Malindi MP Aisha Jumwa, former Kabete MP Ferdinand Waititu, Bahati MP Kimani Ngunjiri, former Kitutu Masaba MP Timothy Bosire, and Suna East MP Junaid Mohammed are on the list of legislators facing allegations of hate speech. And so is Kapseret MP Oscar Sudi, Emurwa Dikir MP Johanna Ngeno, Narok Senator Ledama Olekina, and Nandi County Senator Samson Cherargei. Moses Kuria and Johnson Muthama were acquitted of hate speech. Charges against William Kabogo were dropped, while some legislators are out on bail. Politicians such as Kitui Governor Charity Ngilu have only been summoned and recorded statements with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Despite summons, arrests, investigations, and arraignment in court, all the action does not amount to much. The country has the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, charged with guarding the country from hateful or abusive statements. Working in collaboration with the Director of Public Prosecutions, Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the Police, and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. But despite the collabo, little has been done to tame hate speech. During his tenure at the NCIC, Chairman Francis Ole Kaparo turned the heat on the judiciary.
And the court, unfortunately, sometimes becomes the greatest supporter of impunity. I dare say, everything that is bad in our society ends up in court, and every time it goes to court, the courts will inject the right and ensure that injunction goes on forever.
Kaparo went ahead to blame Kenyans.
Ninyi mnachagua wakorofi jameni. Alafu mnaambia Kaparo, hakikisha wakorofi hawatatusumbua, na nyinyi mnapigia hawa makofi. Hey, amkeni.
According to the National Cohesion and Integration Commission Act, a person is considered to have engaged in hate speech if he or she uses threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior, or displays any written material which is threatening, abusive, or insulting, thereby stirring up ethnic hatred. Any person who commits an offence under this section shall be liable to a fine not exceeding 1 million shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years or both. The NCIC introduced what it called a name and shame list and announced it would be doing so very often. Whoever appears on that list of shame 3 times is barred from vying for any elective position. This has been done only once and is yet to bear any fruit. With little action having been taken ever since the NCIC was formed and the NCIC Act crafted, it may be a while before Kenyans see any real measures as agencies charged with promoting national cohesion seek to prove that they are not toothless bulldogs and the National Cohesion and Integration Act is good not only on paper. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
All right, now, and that story by Rita Tinina brings us into the discussion about hate speech and, of course, the real dangers that it can have in the Kenyan context, particularly with our political history. And like I said earlier on, we have Wambui Nyutu, who is the Vice Chair NCIC. We are also expecting Javas Bigambo, who is a governance expert, to join us and weigh in on this particular conversation. Well, we've had tongues wagging over that use of the term madoadoa. Explain to us what your sentiments were, or what feeling was evoked when you heard the senator come up with that word or that phrase in front of a mass of people.
Yeah, first of all, Trix, thank you very much for hosting me tonight at KTN News, and I want to wish all Kenyans of goodwill a happy new year. This is indeed a defining year for us as Kenyans. The way we behave, the way politicians behave, the way Wanjiko behaves at this point in time, now, before, during, and even after the 2022 general election will really determine whether we stand one as a country or we become disintegrated. Back to your question, you have asked my feelings when I heard the use of the word madoadoa in Eldoret. Before I get to my feelings, today I was in a salon, and the gentleman who makes my nails, I just decided to ask him, hey, did you go home for Christmas? And he said, yes, I went home for Christmas. And now maybe the next time I go there, he comes from the coast region. The next time I go home, maybe will be during the the elections in August. And I asked him, why can't you vote in Nairobi? Because you live in Nairobi, you work in Nairobi. And he said, vita ikitokea, nitajificha wapi? For me, this was a very heartbreaking statement from somebody, you know, who knows that there could be violence during
we've gotten to a point
elections.
where we are planning.
We are already planning
for such an
to be in our villages, to be in our home counties during the elections. This should not be the situation. And it is very unfortunate, and the remarks by Senator Linturi, I think, will go down in history as the most unfortunate remarks in the history of this election, the 2022 general election. Why am I saying this? These are the words that were used in the 2007, 2008 post-election violence. Women were killed, children lost their parents, people lost their businesses, people even, you know, lost their homes, places they had called home for years, in the name of they are madoadoa. So, saying these words in a hotspot area, a marked area, a place where very many people suffered, over 600,000 people suffered. You know, really, I have no words to describe that situation. And so it was really a heartbreaking moment for me. And I hope and I pray and we are working on it, that Senator Linturi faces the full force of the law. As NCIC, we have done our job. We have ensured that he is presented before court. Today he was released on bail. We are following this matter to the tail end of it. And we are praying to the judiciary to ensure that these cases are expedited, so that we can find quick justice, so that when people see that big names are convicted, when a big name is imprisoned for 3 years, for 5 years, for 6 years, another big name will not go out inciting Kenyans or spewing hate speech.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
when you have this, when you've been making your comments, you've talked about the full force of the law. What does that look like in the context, in this context? And of course, what would it take for people to be afraid? Because at this, even when you listen to the story by Rita Tinina, she talks of the NCIC being referred to as a toothless bulldog, which means however much you might wish for that 3-year sentence, it seems like it's never something that we will live to witness, despite these reckless remarks.
Yes.
Could you speak to that?
Thank you very much for that question. You realize that NCIC cannot work in isolation. NCIC does not have the powers to investigate. The powers to investigate are delegated to us by the DCI. And how does he do it? He does it by seconding DCI officers from his office to our office.
Right.
This means we are working with people who are allied to another employer. At the same time, when we do our investigations, we have to hand it over to the DPP. And the DPP will look at the case and they will say, this one meets the threshold for prosecution or it doesn't. Like there was the case, I've seen the issue of Honorable Charity Ngilu, Governor Charity Ngilu. Charity Ngilu was not acquitted just like that. We presented our evidence to the DPP because she had said that people from other areas should not come and work in her county. You know, it was a very discriminatory statement. But the DPP said she should just issue an apology. He recommended it for conciliation. At that point, what can NCIC do? The Constitution says that the powers to prosecute are vested with the Directorate of with the Director of Public Prosecutions. NCIC cannot go to court on its own accord.
So in an ideal scenario, you would have prosecutorial powers?
Yes, but that one is now is not enshrined in the Constitution at the moment. So what we have done, because we cannot cry foul every other day, what we have done is that we have decided to have concerted efforts. We are having a very good working relationship between the DCI, between the DPP, even with the judiciary. We are having very good working relationship. In fact, we have committees, you know, that cuts across. And so this time we are hopeful that our cases will now move smoothly. We also went ahead because the judiciary also takes too long before it decides on these cases. And so we went ahead and petitioned the Chief Justice. And we told her, please give us courts that are dedicated to listening and hearing hate speech cases and incitement to violence cases. She was so kind to us, and indeed she has granted us four courts to be hearing and determining cases that are related to hate speech and incitement to violence. Now, I don't think after this Kenyans will have the courage to name NCIC as a toothless bulldog.
And 2022 will definitely be a defining moment when it comes to that. Javas Bigambo has finally joined us. Thank you so much for making the time for us.
Thank you so much.
Now, you've heard what the Vice Chair NCIC has said about this. When you heard the Madoa-doa, that's where we started off comment. What came to mind, given the loaded history that we have when it comes to that? And also, when we talk about these instances of people not getting the right prosecution, or rather not facing the full wrath of the law after saying reckless remarks, what do you feel, where do you feel the failure is? Is it with the NCIC? Is it with the prosecutorial powers? Is it the judiciary? What are we missing?
Well, thank you, Trix, and I'm happy to be here tonight. First, I think the trick is that we don't even get the tricks yet about this entire circumstance, or whether it's a question of intolerance or it's a question of incitement,
yes,
etc. I think when you examine the full circle of our political history, right from independence or post-independence Kenya to this moment, and then you examine post-multi-party democracy Kenya to this moment, and then you examine Kenya post-Constitution of Kenya 2010,
yes,
you realize that there are a couple of issues that keep on eluding us. The same way, the same spirit of Christianity as it was intended in Scripture continues to elude Christians all over the world to date. Tricks. When you look at and examine the remarks by Senator Linturi in Eldoret, I think we will be lying to ourselves to say that the problem began there.
right,
It has not begun there. From 2017 electioning period to date, have we had cases of political intolerance? I will be lying to myself if the answer to that question is not in the affirmative. To date, beyond the issues of our politicians, are we having cases of intolerance amongst the citizenry? Are we having cases of intolerance amongst state officers and public servants? Are we having cases and sense of intolerance amongst individuals who are duty bearers? That's where the issue is. And with all due respect to my lady here, and she's spoken well, quite eloquent. And I think that the NCAC is doing a great job, not perfect job. Great, not perfect. Of course, NCAC will say that they don't have prosecutorial powers, etc., and whatnot. And when you look at what statements our politicians are making from 2017 hitherto, I make one conclusive statement. I don't think that examining our Constitution of Kenya 2010, our politicians don't know what is right or don't know what's wrong. I think majority of our politicians just don't care. They don't care. They don't care because when parliamentarians in Kenya were making an enabling legislation for Chapter 6 of the Constitution, parliamentarians themselves made sure that the Leadership and Integrity Act was so watered down that it would not even nab any single leader on any critical issue. Today, and at the risk of seeming antithetical to the great work that the NCAC is doing and other independent commissions in Kenya today, one would want to forgive me tonight for saying that our independent commissions appear, one, like she said, toothless, bulldogs, toothless. Two, that our commissions seem to be playing catch-up to the game of politicians. Three, that they seem to be harrowing and complaining because they do not have the capacity, the power, etc. Now, when you look at the committee of experts, when they framed the Constitution of Kenya 2010, they intended that independent commissions should be truly independent. Now, question arises, are our independent commissions truly independent?
She said they're not because
Parliament has failed independent commissions. One, if any independent commission was to do its work as intended in the Constitution, they would be constricted budgetarily. All right? Today, and I'm sure Madam Newt here will tell you, that they know if they were to do their work as anticipated in the Constitution, the next financial year, their budget will be slashed by half or even less.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
From the time when the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights made their very stormy report on the brink of precipice, right? That named various individuals being culpable for the PV of 2007.
Yes.
Amongst them, the current president of Kenya, deputy president of Kenya, and a slate of other leaders. To date, does the KNCHR meet its budgetary demands and expectations,
right,
and do its work?
Yeah, and I'd like the VC to actually speak to that.
The answer is not in the affirmative.
Yeah, because she's here. Let her tell us, are you living under that fear of repercussions if you do what is needed, if you go all out?
I would say it takes courage to do this job, and I'm glad it's the only job with a promise in the Bible. Happy are the peacemakers.
Okay.
Yeah, but I agree with my colleague here on issues of Parliament sort of failing independent commissions.
Yeah, we've all witnessed, even with the judiciary, what the back and forth.
Yeah, and it is very unfortunate. For example, look at our act. We have given very radical proposals on the amendment of our act, the NCIC Act. For example, currently the penalty for hate speech is just 3 years in prison or a fine of 1 million Kenya shillings. That is not deterrence enough. 1 million Kenya shillings is maybe half what an MP makes in a month, you know, from Parliament. You don't know the other business that they're engaged in. So we have proposed changes on having very, very serious punishment, maybe 10 years in prison, over 10 million Kenya shillings fine, and all that. And we have added other characteristics of words that when someone mentions them, then they are liable
to
for hate
a
speech.
database.
But the bill is lying in Parliament. They have, you know, it's nobody is taking care of it because of what they fear. They fear that there will be repercussions.
Okay.
Same case to our budget.
Very well.
Yeah.
Quite eloquent.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But
in fact,
is there a but?
No, there's no but.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Nonetheless, does it mean that it is the blame here rests only on the shoulders of politicians?
No. I didn't say it rests.
Yeah.
It's one of the
you've
factors.
not. No, you've not.
Yes.
I'll be lying to say that you have.
Yeah.
Look, to date, from 2017,
yes,
hitherto, even forget 2017, 2013 to date, has the NCIC made a concerted effort to nab any individual to serve as an exemplary person or case of persons who are culpable for incitement, whether they are leaders in public service, state office, or ordinary citizens? I am sure that Commissioner Nyutu here will struggle to answer me on that issue.
That's a very good point, because we've talked about the clout of some of these politicians, but then this does not, you're not only tasked in bringing to book or trying to investigate politicians or trying to, you know, bring them to account. Politicians, there's many other people you could make good examples of, because these things don't just emanate from the political elite.
Sure.
What have you done?
We already have convictions, 2 convictions from cases running from 2013. Just that media as it is will not highlight, because these are not big politicians. For the other cases, apart from the acquittal of Moses Kuria, apart from the recommendation for conciliation of Honorable Charity Ngilu, most of them are lying in court. And you know, now because we have the court, you know, giving us dedicated courts for our hate speech cases, I think we will see better and expedited issues. As you have said, NCIC is not only charged with the duty of taming hate speech, as people would call us, the hate commission. No, we are charged with responsibilities of ensuring a cohesive country. There are so many issues of lack of cohesion we see in the country, like people fighting along the borders, the things you saw in Marsabit, what you see sometimes in the coast with the border issues, what you see in Nyanza and Western border issues, that is our work. What the issues that were happening in Narok, you know, people rising against each other, we have worked tirelessly, and we always have people on the ground to ensure that these issues, first of all, do not arrive to the issue of bloodshed like what we saw with the Godeas way back. So we have done a lot of work, but people always want to box us to the issues of hate speech.
But the moment right now in the country,
and that is what we are also working on. But I just wanted to educate the people that we have other roles that we do. Ethnic audits, the audits that you see that say that this university has employed 90% of people from one ethnic tribe. That is our work as NCIC.
But in 2022, there is a particular thing that everyone is afraid of. Let me quote, there's a Twitter comment that came out where one man said that he literally peed his pants when he heard the Madoa comment. There's something loaded when it comes to hate speech in Kenya in this year that, of course, is pointing a light at NCIC and, of course, the general public. Javas, perhaps you could explain to us the gravity of the situation for our viewers.
What I think we need to be true to ourselves here, sitting here tonight in this chair. I think I must come to or arrive at a conclusion that, one, if we do not bring ourselves to the reality of the issue of intolerance in this country, this year, 2022, as it was in 2007, we are likely to find ourselves in the unfortunate circumstance of shedding tears like the Brahma Putra in Spate. Tricks. 2007, I was in Eldoret. My father owns property in Eldoret. And when I stepped out of our family home to try and protect or speak in protection of Mr. Karanja, who was a teacher retired, who taught me at Kidiwa Primary School, my father's home was nearly burnt down. What was the offense I made? You are trying to defend the people we don't want. They nearly came for my father's property. Let's face it, Trix. The National Cohesion and Integration Commission is a very important institution. But the work of cohesion in this country does not solely belong to it, but it must preside over that very important duty. Tricks. As I sit here, I can nearly shed tears about the people that are very anxious about this election. When Senator Linturi made his statements in Eldoret, there are people tonight who are planning to move from Eldoret and elsewhere because of his statement. Not because Senator Linturi misspoke. Like I said earlier, our politicians, it's not that they don't know the law. It's not that they don't know what is good for this country, but they don't care. Tricks. I think we must come to a point where we must say to ourselves that whatever was stated in our constitutional writ, especially Article 10, Sub-Article 2, the values of our nation must make sense to everybody. Tonight, we must say that every leader, every political party, every independent commission, and every citizen must work with NCIC to make sure that we make our nation better, our democracy better, not to kill it.
And on that note, I'd like to ask you to hold that thought. We have to take a short break. When we come back, we shall talk more about this, the dangers of hate speech in Kenya, why those loaded words need not be repeated or other incidents need not to happen again. And at the same time, the back and forth between different factions, some defending said words, others condemning said words. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we shall dig deeper into hate speech and what needs to be done to put it to an end once and for
for all as we head towards the 2022 general elections.